leaving 6 people dead. At least 3 children, 2 9-year-olds, another about to turn 9, and 3 adult staffers killed in the rampage at a private Christian school in Nashville. Police say the shooter was a 28-year-old transgender woman armed with 2 assault-style firearms and a handgun. How officers took the shooter down. The disturbing evidence police have found and the suspects linked to that school. Also tonight, the deadly path of destruction in the south. At least 22 people killed, entire towns destroyed. The powerful EF4 tornado on the ground for nearly 60 miles. The harrowing stories of survival and the new threats on the move right now. Al Roker is here. New testimony in the Donald Trump hush money investigation in New York. The tabloid king the grand jury heard from today. Israel in crisis, tens of thousands protesting in the streets over a controversial plan from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and what he has now agreed to do. And the real-life Rosie the Riveters, the special honor today for the women who played a critical role during World War II.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. Here we are again. More families added to a tragic and growing list of those who have gotten that heart-crushing call, who sent or took their children to school, never imagining they would never see them again. That searing pain and sadness descending tonight on a Nashville, Tennessee community, where a heavily armed shooter walked into a private Christian elementary school this morning and murdered 3 children along with 3 adults in what police call a targeted attack. 2 of the children killed were just 9 years old. A third was about to be 9. The shooter, identified late today by Nashville police as 28-year-old Audrey Hale. Hale was fatally shot by responding officers. The scene resembling one we are all well acquainted with. Children lined up and hurried away from the scene. Parents waiting to be reunited with their children as scores of first responders descended on the scene. In a moment, my interview with the police chief. But first, Kathy Park leads us off from Nashville.
The start of a school day shattered by gunshots at the Covenant School in Nashville.
We're under a mass casualty alert. The school shooting, multiple victims down.
Police rushed to the small private Christian elementary school, where authorities say a former student entered the building through a side door that fatally shot 3 9-year-old students and 3 adults. Authorities say the suspect, 28-year-old Audrey Hale, who identifies as transgender, was killed by police.
She was armed with at least 2 assault-type rifles and a handgun.
Among the victims, 3 9-year-old students. The first call came in at 10:13 a.m. Central Time. Police say responding officers entered the school minutes later and heard shots fired on the 2nd floor. At 10:27 a.m., 14 minutes after the first call, police say the shooter was dead.
We've also determined there were maps drawn of the school in detail of surveillance, entry points, etc.
Amid the chaos, panicked parents anxiously waited outside for updates, while their pre-K through 6th grade students were ushered to safety.
They weren't letting the parents up there, so they were just running up the street. There were so many police cars. And then the ambulances started coming away from the school.
Inside the school, Avery Myrick's mother was teaching when the shooter opened fire.
I texted her and I said just like what was going on. She said she was hiding in the closet and that there was shooting all over.
The shooter lived in the Nashville area, according to police, and they're still investigating potential motives.
From my initial findings is that at one point she was a student at that school, but unsure what year.
The nation is no stranger to gun violence, and tonight this marks the 3rd major school shooting of the year.
Something's got to be done. This is 3 people lost their children today. It's hard to imagine.
Folks,
the president today consoling heartbroken families while calling Congress to pass an assault weapons ban.
And we have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart.
Tonight, grief gripping another community. This time, a deadly day inside an American school.
How is this still happening? How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them?
Kathy Park is near the scene. Kathy, are the families now all reunited at this hour?
Well, Lester, it certainly has been a tragic day for this community. We have learned that all the families have reunited with their students. Meanwhile, the scene is still being processed at this hour. We plan on getting body camera footage either tonight or sometime tomorrow. Lester?
All right, Kathy Park, thank you. Joining me now is Nashville Police Chief John Drake. Chief Drake, I appreciate you being here. Based on your last briefing, it sounds like things are moving very quickly. You describe this as a targeted attack. Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. So the person we know is Audrey Hale. She's a 28-year-old Nashvilleian. We have belief, or we feel that very strongly that she went to school here in the Nashville area, and she went to that actual school. And so there's some belief that there was some resentment for having to go to that school. Don't have all the details of that just yet, and that's why this incident occurred.
Did Hale target, in your mind, did Hale target the school or someone in the school?
She targeted random students in the school, just whoever, and persons, whoever she came in contact with, she fired rounds. In this incident, we had 3 adults that were killed that worked at the school, and then we had 3 kids, 2 age 9 and 1 about to be 9.
You recovered what you described as a manifesto. You've also said that Hale identified as trans. Do you believe there is a connection to that?
We feel that she identifies as trans, but we're still in the initial investigation into all of that and if it actually played a role into this incident. As we know more, we'll definitely make that known, but right now we're unsure if that actually played a role.
But does the manifesto point you in a particular direction that you can reveal?
It does. It has. In the initial investigation, we've turned it over to the FBI. We've looked over it as well. It indicates that there was going to be shootings at multiple locations, and the school was one of them. There was actually a map of the school detailing surveillance, entry points, and how this was going to be carried out on this day.
All right, my thanks to Police Chief John Drake for being with us tonight. Let's turn now to our other top story, the death and destruction caused by tornadoes across the southeast, leaving 21 people dead in Mississippi and 1 in Alabama. Tom Yamas is in Mississippi tonight.
Tonight, in parts of central Mississippi, turn down any block and you'll see home after home, business after business reduced to rubble. And for so many, it's not just their town that's gone.
All I know is that I lost everything. And we really need help, man.
D'Angelo White and Diamond Waldington lost their mother, stepfather, and brother when the wind tore apart their mobile home. Helen Munford was a teacher and bus driver. Danny, a welder. Their son, Jadarian, was only 14.
She got 7 kids, 8 grandkids. That's all we know is our mom and dad, and they gone.
Tonight, they're staying with family because they lost their homes as well.
What we got now? Oh, man, it's hard, man.
In all, reports of at least 25 tornadoes in 4 states since Friday. There's evidence Tornado Alley is expanding, with fewer twisters in the Great Plains and more in the southeast. This is the small town of Rolling Fork before and after the catastrophic EF4 tornado. In many cases, people still can't believe just how strong this tornado was. They point to these 2 big rigs. They say they were parked side by side. When the tornado came in, it lifted them up and tossed them to a different section of the neighborhood and left them like this, mangled on top of each other. So why was this tornado so destructive? It happened at night, and it was incredibly long-lasting. Its path a staggering 59 miles, and it tore through vulnerable communities.
I got a bunch of clothes under the tree there.
Greg Henderson has lived here his whole life, but when we met him, he was looking for his home. It was here.
Right there, yeah, right. Yeah, it's nothing, man.
All that's left, debris, and a few beloved damaged mementos. But Henderson's neighbor lost his life, so tonight, he's counting his blessings.
My daughter and granddaughter are safe, and I'm alive, so everything else is secondary.
In all, 22 people are dead, including several friends of Ophelia Stewart.
That was the worst experience of my life.
Her home was blown apart, but her life was spared because she was at a church meeting at a friend's home.
He opened the door and we looked out. Everything was gone.
Ophelia hasn't been able to recover much, but she did find her Bible, source of strength as she grapples with all that's been lost.
What have you told God?
Told him thank you for sparing my life, not only my life, my brother's life. He lost everything. My sister, she lost everything. My nephew, they lost everything.
Tom, you've been reporting on the ground for a couple of days now. The storm was so powerful, it seems like nothing in its track could withstand it.
That is right, Lester. Mobile homes, but also homes made of brick. As you look behind me here, this was a neighborhood that was dotted with different types of structures, all of them completely gone. The mayor tells us he thinks 85% of his town is gone. I can tell you, Lester, it's probably even more than that. And when residents here say they're lucky to be alive, they're not exaggerating. It's a miracle anyone survived this tornado.
Destruction as far as you can see. Tom, thank you. The destruction has left so many families desperate, wondering how they will recover from this disaster. Priscilla Thompson tonight on the experience of one woman in Mississippi.
I could have been dead. We all could have been dead.
Melinda Washington's husband frantically dug her out of the rubble Friday night. Her 12-year-old son screaming in agony as his mom lay buried.
There's a lot different from seeing it on TV until you actually live it.
Bruised, battered, but alive, now left to face a new reality.
We're in a small community. We have nothing. No running water, no lights, no houses, no transportation.
Rolling Fork and Silver City are small rural towns where more than a third of people live in poverty, nearly 3 times the national average.
A lot of people didn't have rentals insurance. I didn't. No vehicle insurance. A lot of people didn't have nothing.
Some 2,000 people now desperate for help, many of them with homes that look like this.
We've got MEMA and FEMA joint teams on the ground here.
President Biden sending federal resources to help fill the gap, approving funding for temporary housing and loans to those with no insurance.
One of the major issues that we're going to face is housing.
Some residents fear the aid may not be enough on a road to recovery that could take years, not months. Which is why people here are coming together, looking for small glimmers of hope. Like Melinda's coffee shop, one of the few buildings still standing. One less thing to rebuild as these communities struggle to pick up the pieces.
I don't have a lot of plans because I don't have a lot of money. And so I'm just trusting God during the process. I know he saved a lot of us for a reason, and so I trust him.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
Here in New York, the grand jury investigating the hush money case against former President Trump heard from the former publisher of the National Enquirer today. David Packer, who also testified in January, helped arrange the deal between Michael Cohen, Mr. Trump's former lawyer, and an adult film star who said she had an affair with Mr. Trump. Turning now to the chaos in Israel. For months, protesters have railed against a plan to overhaul the country's judiciary.